And we are live. Ooh, I can hear myself.
A little feedback.
Indeed. All
All
right.
right, let's see. Oh, there we go. 441 subscribers allegedly.
Allegedly.
Mm-hmm.
Almost halfway there. Allegedly.
Almost.
It's been a while, man.
Yeah, it's just like it's like a gumbo that you let sit for a little bit and it starts to get tastier and tastier.
I don't know the ways of the gumbo because I'm one of
No, fucking
these
either.
pasty white northerners.
Me too. But
Okay, let me open this stream up and then I can come see what our delightful, beloved commenters have to say to us today. We'll give them a few minutes to pile their way on in here. You guys haven't seen our good man, Mr. Liberal Steve himself, in a little while.
lucky. Oh, so lucky.
He asked me if he could do the show in he had just gotten out of the shower and he asked me if he could do the show in just his towel, and I figured that there's probably a subset of the crowd out there that would really enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently there's a theme on this show of everyone who's not me taking their shirt off. So maybe that's what whenever we have a guest on here, maybe that's what they're gonna have to do is they're gonna have to do the entire episode with their shirt off.
Take your fucking shirt off, Curtis.
Yeah.
Enough of that.
Vin Armani wouldn't care.
No, certainly not.
Probably wouldn't be able to get all that many chicks to come on the show, but if we did, the shows would be very popular.
Yeah, well,
Maybe we'll get Ben Shapiro on the show and he can take his shirt off.
I wish his sister would get on the show. You've
I
seen
bet
her?
you do. Oh yeah. Yep.
Oh my god.
Abby. She's fine as
She
long
have an
as
she
she's
have an
not
Instagram?
talking. I don't know. Probably.
Why? What does she
Abby.
talk about?
Oh, just like if you think that Ben has boomer takes, man.
I think
Oh.
that's great. I'd be so into that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I could see you
God, I'd
enjoying
love that.
that. Yeah,
Yeah, I just want her to.
classically Abby is her on
I
Instagram.
just want her to send me memes so that I can post them in libertarian groups.
Piss him off.
Yeah.
Steven's just
Oh
trying to get
man,
himself kicked out of all of his libertarian groups.
go ahead, eyebrows. Yeah,
She has hashtag conservative influencer in her Instagram bio. This is
Oh
this is the type of delightful personality that we're talking about here.
I love it. I love it.
She has a sponsored post for Body Armor Water. Paid partnership with
I'm
Drink
so
Body
into it.
Armor.
I'm so into it.
Okay.
I can't find her real her real Instagram for some reason.
What do you mean?
I just saw all these not Abby like fans of Abby Shapiro.
Oh,
There's some there's one that's really good in terms of what the handle is that I'm not going to share.
let me see if I can find it.
This is great. You, have you seen it?
Is it like initials
Abby
GM?
Shapiro. Yeah.
Abby Shapiro LARP account?
Yeah. We're gonna give some love to this in the chat. I don't know if you've opened and take a look. It's pretty good. That made my day. Everything's turning around now.
Oh, Steven's happy again. Oh man, that's
Oh.
there's some levels to the memes there. The memes have levels. Apparently Yarvin is going to be on David Gornowski's channel in 3 hours time. That is very good to know. I
That's
have
awesome.
I have yet another thing to distract me with so I can prolong having to listen to the 4 hour Lex Friedman, Yaron Brook, and Michael Malice conversation. Everyone's been telling me I need to listen to it. And next week I'm going to go on Popular Liberty's show and we're going to be breaking it down apparently. And I'm having a very difficult time convincing myself to wade through 4 hours of Randianism.
That's this guy, right? David whoever.
Yes, that guy.
Yeah, okay.
I see what you're doing there. He's David
He does a good
Gornowski's.
job, though.
Yeah, he's just absolutely brilliant. Go listen to his everyone
a
out
little
there.
bit of a tight shot, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, and he's like on terrestrial radio and everything too. So he has his like his dramatic entry and stuff. He's go listen to his appearance, most recent appearance on Pete Quinonez's podcast. There was just an absolutely brilliant conversation talking about Girardianism and sacrifice and scapegoats and all that kind of thing. It's very, very good. Okay. Let me see. Let's get this. My wireless mouse decided to kick the bucket just before we got started here, so I've got to try to get myself to use this touchpad, and it's going to just trip me out this whole time. But we will make do. Somehow I'll survive.
About wireless mouses.
This is Steven's only currency these days is boomer memes. He exclusively traffics in boomer memes.
Yeah, it was my favorite one was it was a picture of Lady Di, Jackie O, and then Melania Trump in the middle.
Oh yes,
all in white dresses, talking about like 3 pictures of elegance or something like that. I was just thinking, man, there's no way that this got made legitimately, did it? But it's tough to know. It's tough to know what's real anymore.
It's like those memes of Trump sitting at the Resolute desk with Jesus like hovering over his shoulder with his hand on his, like as he's writing his bills. Yeah. Right. The boomers are so precious.
They're the best memes. I don't know. I just think I don't know. Like memes are almost over now. I think maybe.
Yeah, you think that they're memes gonna get outlawed?
I just think that once a format, once people get whatever the format is, it's just kind of over. It's like I see what we do now. Some text above and some text below, and it's like with like if you watch enough like stand up or whatever, and you just see, oh yeah, like I know what this guy does. I know Chris Rock's cadence, and that's you're immune to Chris Rock after a little bit, just because you can kind of like see what he's gonna do. And I think boomer memes are the palate cleanser that the world needs right now.
I wonder if it's like the irony of them, like having a.
Well, yeah, they're peak irony, and they're doing it unintentionally, which is just another layer of irony in many ways. So
yeah, irony layered upon irony.
Yeah, some kind of irony inception that we're in.
Well, now that would have made a good title for the show. I guess I could change
irony inception.
Ironyception. I'm happy enough with what we've got. When can we start sending people the link to the listeners group? You don't have it yet? How do you've guest hosted on the show and you don't have the link to the listeners group? How can that be? Populibs, as Steven calls you.
That doesn't seem right to me.
If you were in the supporting listeners group, then you would know that the appropriate abbreviation for Popular Liberty is Populibs.
Yeah, that's right. This is some sort of imposter libs.
If you aren't in the supporting listeners group, then just go join it. That's all you have to do. We won't even stop you. All you have to do is just join it, and then you'll be there.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So he's texting me. Oh, he said it. You're right. He says, "Not just listen to the first 2 hours." Okay, so apparently I only have to listen to the first 2 hours of the Lex Friedman, Yaron Brook, Michael Malice conversation. I can get through 2 hours. I've been listening to lately is this podcast called Lord of Spirits. It's 2 Orthodox priests talking about Christian.
Monsters.
Yeah, demons.
Yeah.
And the current little mini series that they're doing within the podcast, they did a couple episodes on bodies, like the nature of bodies, what a body is, what is God's body, and it's absolutely I don't know. People say mind blowing too much, but for someone like having grown up in the church, so to speak, grown up a Christian, and not just like just a casual cultural Christian who went to church every weekend and just called myself a Christian. I like actually went to a couple different Bible colleges, and I like studied evangelism within the church, and I studied the church doctrine and everything. And now encountering Orthodox Christianity and seeing Christian doctrine through their eyes is just absolutely mind blowing. It's like I'm rediscovering everything that I had known all this time and realizing that there's a much deeper layer of meaning than I initially understood. So, like for example, just a teaser, the way that a body, according to these guys on this podcast, the way that like the authors of the Bible would have thought of a body is not this physical flesh and bone material thing, but a body was a more kind of esoteric abstract definition, which the way they've defined it is like a nexus of potentialities. And so you have all these different potentialities and they meet at one point. And so God has a body. And we have this tendency as humans to think, okay, well, we're made in the image of God, so we're going to look at ourselves and then we're going to imagine a God that is like us. And they said that's exactly backwards. That's the anthropomorphization of God. We're making God like man. We are actually the theomorphization. We're theomorphs. So we're in the image of God. So when you talk about our face, when you talk about God having a face, it's not a metaphor when the Bible talks about his face. He actually has a face, and our face is like a reflection of his. But the face is like the ability to communicate or the ability to express meaning. And so it's like I spent a while reading through like quantum mechanics stuff and like trying to get into the more weird abstract philosophy. And there's this deeply sciencey thing. Like it feels like I'm reading science. There was religion, and religion's the touchy-feely thing, and I'm reading the science. And I've never encountered something as like science fiction-y sounding as the Orthodox Christian perspective. It's like you're studying the nature of the universe in the most scientific way, and that's what religion is. So anyway, that was a long way to say go listen to the Lord of Spirits podcast. If you do, just start from the beginning because they all kind of build on each other. So just go back to the very beginning one and just start listening through them. And there'll be audio issues. One of the guys there has lots of audio issues, so you just kind of have to suffer through them for a little while, but they get better. And yeah, and it's funny too, like listening to Orthodox priests. If someone had told me a couple of years ago, I'm listening to this podcast with a couple Orthodox priests, my eyes would have glazed over. I would have been like, okay, that doesn't sound very interesting at all. But like I said, this is like, it's almost like a science fiction podcast, except it's describing the Bible and reality. And the two guys are like, they would fit into a libertarian community really well. They're incredibly nerdy with all these like goofy inside jokes and pop culture references. And I don't know, nerdiness abounds in the realm where you talk about the mystical. So I guess Vin Armani is kind of an exception. He's not nearly as nerdy, but he's still pretty nerdy. Alrighty. So we've got some people in here watching us now, so I think we'll get into the meat of today. You can see from the headline. I tried to think of I was trying to think of a way to get these buzzwords, BlackRock and the Fed, in there, but I also want to piss off libertarians. There's something that's just
why
so gratifying.
Matt, you should stop that.
There's something that's so gratifying about it, and I feel bad sometimes too, because like it's not that I want to piss them off, it's that I want to rattle them. I want to. They enter every single conversation that they have under the assumption that they've already got the world figured out, and so I want something to get their attention and rattle them and get them like, hang on a second, and have them enter the conversation playing a different role than they usually do. But to be fair to them, they enter a lot of conversations playing the role of defending libertarianism from people who are attacking it. So I have to try to balance this desire to just be gratified by attacking libertarians because it's fun, and actually communicating the fact that I am passionate about their perspective, and I want them to realize that they have some major gaps, and if they were just to fill in those gaps, then it would change their lives. It would make them see the world in a different way. Anyway, so BlackRock is proving that end the Fed isn't good enough. There's this conversation going on about BlackRock, and BlackRock, if you don't know, is the largest asset manager in the world. There's an article here. I'll put it in the show notes afterwards. From Business Insider about 9 fascinating facts to know about BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager. And let's see, what were the details? They control $9 trillion, making it the largest money manager in the world. That's more than the gross domestic product of every country in the world except for the US and China. And it runs a massive technology platform that oversees at least $21.6 trillion in assets. In 1999, BlackRock started selling Aladdin, which analyzes and tracks investors' portfolios, which can help professional money managers spot risks. So, why does this matter? Who are they? What does it matter? So, if the news cycle hasn't reached you on this yet, it's been trending on Twitter for the last couple of days. Apparently, BlackRock, this hedge fund, this pension fund, is buying family houses. They're buying residential real estate, single family homes. And not only are they doing that, they're buying as many as they can find, and they're paying 20 to 50% above the asking price, and they're outbidding normal home buyers. So basically, they're just inflating the residential real estate market. The reason they're doing this is all this extra cash that has been pumped into the economy through recent COVID bills has meant that there's much more money to work with to drive up prices. This is just inflation at work. And so there was this thread that really got this going from this Twitter handle. Cultural Husbandry is their name is the name of the account, and they tweeted this thread about it that went mega viral. They've got 30,000 retweets and counting. And so they broke down exactly what's happening, and I wanted to run through that real quick, and then talk about the way that it ties into the message that we've been talking about here. And then also you kind of use this as a way of pointing out the issues that we have with the libertarian view of the world, like the shortcomings of the kind of oversimplified free market is the end all be all view that most libertarians and conservatives bring to the table. And I think this is a good story that illustrates those shortcomings. It illustrates why viewing the world through the libertarian lens leads you to taking actions that not only do they not achieve the end that you want, but in many cases they can be explicitly counterproductive. And I think most libertarians, from the way I see people talk about this, I think most people have they just have a poor view of the world. There's this public-private distinction that they obsess over, and I used to obsess over. Seeing myself as like a post-libertarian, like a recovering libertarian, and it's just not like the distinction exists, but it's just not useful, especially not in the way that it's being used. So I'll just run through this thread real quick from Cultural Husbandry. So they started off, they linked a Wall Street Journal article that says, if you sell a house these days, the buyer might be a pension fund. Yield-chasing investors are snapping up single-family homes, competing with ordinary Americans and driving up prices. So the guy asks, why are corporations, pension funds, and property investment groups buying entire neighborhoods out from under the middle class? Let's take a look. Homes are popping up on MLS and going under contract within a few hours. So people are putting houses up to sale and they're being sold almost immediately. BlackRock, among others, are buying up thousands of new homes and entire neighborhoods. So who is BlackRock? Only the world's largest asset manager and the leading proponent of the Great Reset. They're looking to redistribute, get this, $120 trillion. The entire wealth of the world's middle class and poor combined several times over. And what he links is an article called The Great Reset. BlackRock is fueling a $120 trillion transformation on Wall Street. And that article talks about how the things that BlackRock has been saying about their plans for clients, doubling investments, and other stuff there. Again, I'll put this thread into the show notes so you can go through and read it yourself. But continuing with the thread, he says, as an example, a 124 new home neighborhood was bought in its entirety in Texas. Average Americans were outbid to a tune of $32 million. Homes sold at an average of 20% above listing. Now the entire neighborhood is made up of SFRs. So what are SFRs? SFRs are single-family rentals. Now your potential lower to middle class homeowner is positioned to be a permanent renter. This matters because for the lower and middle class, owning a home is the most major part of any financial success and future upward mobility. He says this is wealth redistribution, and it ain't rich people's wealth that's getting redistributed. It's normal American middle class, salt of the earth wealth heading into the hands of the world's most powerful entities and individuals. The traditional financial vehicle gone forever. Home equity is the main financial element that middle class families use to build wealth, and BlackRock, a Federal Reserve funded financial institution, is buying up all the houses to make sure that young families can't build wealth. That's right, Federal Reserve funded financial institute. Let that sink in for a minute. Got it? They're using your tax dollars to fuck over the lower and middle class, and it's permanent. Not one presidential administration of bullshit. This is a fundamental reorganization of society. So where does this position the average American in 30 years when it's a given that every new neighborhood is to be bought up whole so they can be utilized as single-family rentals? It positions them as peasants. Being poor can be a temporary condition bettered by upward mobility. In the US and other nations, home ownership is often the first and most vital step. This can provide for generational wealth and success. But as permanent guaranteed renters, you're pissing away a lifetime of equity and the chance for mobility. You just become a peasant. The Great Reset is real. It is happening. This will be the greatest transfer of wealth and the greatest consolidation of power in the history of mankind. If they get away with it, revolution will be the only cure. It will be awful. Wake up, get active, stop this now. This is warfare, make no doubt about it. Lloyd's Bank in London is doing it, as is every great financial institute across the world. This must be stopped. It's a greater threat than the slow creep of communism, BLM, or anything else you can think of combined. It is a death stroke. BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street control $20 trillion worth of assets. BlackRock alone has a $10 billion a year surplus. That means with 5 to 20% down, they can get mortgages on $130,000 to $175,000 homes every year, or they can outright buy $30,000 homes per year, just BlackRock alone. Now imagine every major institute doing this because they are. It can be such a fast sweeping action that 30 years may be overshooting it. They may accomplish feudalism in 15 years. People will say they can't just piss away money on buying tens of thousands of homes that are all at a loss. Wrong. You and I can't do that. They are fronting the Federal Reserve and are financed by an endless stream of freshly created fiat money. And what's the global reserve currency? Oh yeah, green funny money. You may ask, suppose the banks won't finance new housing. Or, but companies are buying them for way above asking price. Can it last? Well, the banks are controlled by and in bed with the same cabal buying everything up. You think this will be corrected by market forces when it is a financial and political pincher movement pushed by the same cabal that STOLE, the 2020 ELECTION, and hid COVID truth. You are fucked. So I am not nearly as doom and gloom as this guy is, but I do think
I'm not either, and I've got a real, hopefully some of the fans have picked up on what I'm picking up on, but yeah, we'll hear what you have to say first.
Okay. So I think that he's right that this is a major issue. This is a fundamental transformation. And this is what we were talking about a couple of months ago when we described how what the Great Reset meant was effectively the elimination of government. The removal, because like right now you have the government and then the corporations basically run the government. And they have this third party, this middleman between us and the corporations, that the corporations pretend to cede sovereignty away to the government, and then the government governs us, and the corporations fund the lobbyists change the laws, affect us, yada yada yada. You get this cycle going. And what the Great Reset is doing is it's eliminating government as the middleman. Eventually, the narrative is going to be something along the lines of, we can't trust the government anymore. The government has been too infiltrated and too taken over by white supremacists. White supremacists have too much of a foothold within the government. They've been trying to take over the government. They're going to be like, oh, they've preached limited government. Well, they've been doing all these things to try to take over the government, to dominate all of us. And the government is just a lost cause. We can't do that anymore. Instead, we're going to have these corporations who come forward, and this is why you're seeing all these corporations that are all taking explicitly political stances proactively on different issues. And they're beginning to enforce these issues. So you might get a national mask mandate relaxation. Governments aren't mandating masks anymore, but all the major retailers will. They'll continue to mandate masks, and they'll start to use their market pressure to force out any stores that don't. So all of this can be accomplished without actually engaging the government at all. And this is the move that's being made now. So when they talk about the Great Reset 2030, you'll own nothing and you'll enjoy it. That promise that was is really a masquerading threat from the World Economic Forum commercial. This is the step in that direction. This is what it means. If you can't own property, if you can't own land, you have no freedom. You can't have freedom. You exist at the behest of someone else. And see, the thing is, this already exists. This dynamic already exists. This is why I'm not as black-pilled as some people are on this. You already can't own land. You can have a limited legal claim to it based upon the enforcement of the federal government or your state governments. So you have like a government-sanctioned claim to the land, but you don't own it. You have to pay property taxes on it. You're renting it, effectively, even if you own it. So if you're an actual renter, you're just renting from the renter, and you're subletting the land. So this dynamic already exists. What they're doing is they're removing the middleman. You're just going to rent from the actual owner, and the government doesn't even get involved at all. It's just going to be the people call it corporations or hedge funds or whatever. You can give it whatever name you want. What it is it's a collection of very powerful, wealthy people who have final say over that property. And this is where the libertarian response, so people are going to say, oh, Ben Shapiro's not a libertarian. But what he's doing here in this thread I'm going to read is he's expressing the libertarian response to this. Because he's a libertarian selectively, like everyone is a libertarian selectively. He's being selective in the application of his libertarianism, so he's giving the libertarian argument in this particular case. What he says is, I see many people are enraged at BlackRock. BlackRock is buying homes from people willing to sell them. If you don't like what they're doing, target the loose governmental policy incentivizing this sort of investment. Oh, okay, so they're doing a thing that they're going to accomplish in the space of a couple of years, and we need to do the thing that takes a decade of concerted effort and, to affect loose government. Like, the idea that you're going to affect monetary policy by activisting against the Fed is preposterous. So really what he's describing is, as this person said, oh man, I lost the other thread, tweet I had. Oh no, here it is. He said, if crony capitalists who have accumulated their wealth through nepotism and preferential treatment want to further consolidate their power, that's their prerogative, as long as they acknowledge my hypothetical scenario in which they wouldn't use those same connections for bailouts. Because he says, seriously, BlackRock isn't going to stop investing in single-family homes because you're mad on Twitter, but you could direct your energies towards stopping the Fed's insane monetary policy, which is driving down the cost of loans and creating a massive bubble. Sure, yeah, that is what's happening. That's part of this process.
Yeah, so why don't you guys just do that? Seriously.
Go after the Fed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously. Stop the Federal Reserve, which was incepted in a suspicious time period with relation to the Titanic sinking.
Huh, funny how that worked, huh? And there was, I remember a guy recently who had a little catchphrase. I think it was end the Fed. Was that what it was? Hmm. I wonder what that
Yeah.
guy. I wonder what that guy was trying to do. I think he was trying to take over the
Hmm.
Libertarian Party. I think that was. I think that was his goal. Um, he'd spent years in the system, and he decided he felt very passionately about ending the Fed. So the means by which he chose to do that was taking over the Libertarian Party and spitting hot liberty fire at people. That was that's the model for us. Um, so Shapiro's he expresses the libertarian the ultimate rationalist libertarian sentiment. He says if BlackRock is willing to take the risk of leveraging up to buy single family housing at above market prices, that's their prerogative. So long as they own the downside risk, no bailouts ever. Okay, so who's enforcing
That's
this
probably what will
no
happen.
bailouts ever?
Yeah. No, that's what's going to happen probably.
Exactly. That's exactly
There-
what's going to happen.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There won't be any. There won't be any bailouts if need be.
It's this is the nature of the game. And see,
Fair play.
this is where the
What I-
public private distinction just doesn't mean anything. You're dealing with people. These are people that are acting, and they're acting in whatever domain they can. They're going to act in the domain of the Fed, which is a private organization. They're going to act in the domain of the Treasury Department, which is a public organization. They're going to act in the domain of BlackRock, which is a private organization. But it's the same people acting in different organizations, and they're the ones controlling the rules of each organization. So here's some details about BlackRock. So this is from that Business Insider article. Nine fascinating facts to know about BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager. So it's the world's largest investment manager. It's become an increasingly influential Wall Street player in Washington, D.C. as a poster child of the revolving door between finance and politics. The firm has hired notable policymakers over the years, and at least 3 leaders within the New York-based asset manager on their resumes now hold prominent roles in President Joe Biden's cabinet. Former BlackRock investment executive Brian Deese leads Biden's National Economic Council, effectively serving as his top advisor on economic matters. Biden also tapped Adewale Wally Adeyemo, a former chief of staff to BlackRock chief executive and longtime Democrat Larry Fink, to serve as a top official at the Treasury Department. Meanwhile, Michael Pyle, BlackRock's former global chief investment strategist, who had worked in the Obama administration before joining the firm, serves as chief economic advisor to Vice President Kamala Harris. So these are people. So just the mere idea of a revolving door between finance and politics should immediately cause you to question this distinction between the two, as if the fact that someone's acting as a representative of the federal government is somehow fundamentally different than someone acting as a representative of the organizations that control the federal government. Either way, it's a person acting to suit their own interests, to use an organization that they can control to some degree or another to promote their own interests. But somehow libertarians and conservatives are, when they have this arbitrarily different title, it's like, oh, they can do it. They're just obeying their incentives. They can do what they want. If you don't like it, then go engage with them on this playing field that you can never obtain, and a playing field you can never get to. And when those people are suddenly, they just like change their title, they have different words, different mouth noises to describe their title. Suddenly, libertarians can't possibly be interested in them. And then they change the mouth words for their title, and suddenly libertarians, oh yeah, that's where we have to focus. That's the thing. That's the badness. And somehow, like I'm the bad guy because I say, hey, what BlackRock's doing is very bad. Like this is objectively bad that BlackRock is doing this, because every possible consequence downstream from it is bad. There's so many layers to how bad it is that BlackRock is doing this. And just because they're a private company doesn't mean they're off limits from doing bad things. And what this really drives at, I think, is that libertarians have talked so much about the free market that they've basically deified the free market. They've turned it into an idol. That the free market, it's this NPC script that free market equals good, as if so what is the free market? The free market is an accumulation of people making decisions. So if whatever the free market produces is good and we just have to accept it, what you're saying is that human desire is the ultimate barometer for good and evil. What humans desire to do. Like, just because two people voluntarily agree to do the same, to participate in a transaction, that's the only standard whereby we judge whether that's a good or evil transaction. Ben Shapiro points out that that there's people who are selling their houses, and what you're saying by saying that BlackRock shouldn't be doing this is you're saying those people shouldn't be receiving that much money for their property, that somehow we need to take money out of their pocket. And I'm not saying we need to take money out of their pocket. I'm not saying we need to do anything, because we can't do anything. What I'm doing is I'm observing what's happening, and I'm recognizing that having an institution as large and powerful and influential and populated with genuinely evil people like BlackRock, using their wealth, power, and influence in this way, is objectively bad. And it needs to be socially, culturally looked upon as bad. If we can't even achieve that, we can't do anything beyond it. So what I want is I want a group of people, I want a network of people who recognize what BlackRock is doing is bad. And we need to treat it as bad, and we need to respond to it in some way, rather than just waiting for it to affect the Fed or something, or saying, oh, well, this is what they have to do, so if you just have to stop them from doing bailouts later on. Because you're never gonna achieve that. You're never gonna accomplish that. This is the nature of the system. And these people depend upon the popular sentiment that if a private company does it, it's good because the private company did it. Do you have any thoughts on this right now?
That's when you're gonna like start. I remember a while ago I was saying something like you got to be very careful when, if people start amplifying your voice if you're a libertarian.
Yes.
That's when you're gonna start to see, libertarians sort of in the forefront a little bit, as bad as in the forefront as they can be. Just kind of whenever it's time to sort of make that switch over. When you need some nice anti-government sentiment, you'll have some charismatic libertarians that'll be on your TV screen or wherever they have to be, making compelling arguments against against the state, which they'll just be being useful idiots for. But look forward to that. That'll be fun.
Right.
It'll be fun to see some of my Facebook newsfeed on TV. God, they're awful.
Steven has one hell of a Facebook newsfeed. He sends me screenshots periodically, and there's a couple of consistently represented characters there who are just the biggest buffoons I have ever seen. They have the worst possible take on every possible circumstance, and it's the smuggest, smarmiest, most condescending, self-righteous attitude about it all.
And that's coming from us.
Right. There's nothing smug or condescending about us. We're such kind people. What this is effectively is the nationalization of the real estate market. Because what is the nationalization of the real estate market? It would be state control or state ownership of the real estate market. Well, what does that mean? That means the people who occupy the roles within the state have final say-so over what happens to that real estate. Well, that's what this is accomplishing. If BlackRock has final say, so BlackRock eventually is going to sell this property, presumably. So who are they going to sell it to? They get to decide who they sell it to. So if they decide, well, we're not going to sell any of this property that we bought, we're never going to sell it to a single family. It's only ever going to get sold to another investment firm. Which investment firm? Oh, the one that we're chummy with, the one that we go, drink scotch with. They're the ones that we're going to sell it to. How is this functionally different from a congressman writing a bill that says we're assigning the ownership and the final authority over this property to this bureau of the federal government? Like, how is that functionally different? The public-private distinction is irrelevant. And like Stephen is saying, if you are a libertarian preaching what you think is a libertarian message, and people within the I guess the corporate press begin to amplify your message, it's because that message isn't a libertarian message. They're going to amplify it because it suits their interests. I suppose maybe that makes it a libertarian message, because ultimately libertarianism is all about we don't hurt people and we don't take their stuff. Okay, well, what if you buy everybody's stuff and then never give it up? Is that hurtful? Does that harm people? Okay, well, now we need to talk about what harm is. So what you need to do is you need to go sit down and engage the people who despise you, who hate you and hate your values, and try to persuade them to believe in your definition of harm. You're only going to this is an unwinnable battle. This is if this is what libertarianism brings to the world, then it's useless for the people who claim to endorse it. This isn't a functional ideology. This isn't a functional belief system. This isn't a functional set of prescriptions for behavior. You have to be able to call evil what is evil. You can't make these arbitrary distinctions that, oh, it's a private company, so they could do what they want. I don't know. I'm out of words to describe how silly it is. But I don't want I don't want to make this just a bitch session, and I want to be able to kind of carve a path forward or project a path forward. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, there's two things. Is I just listened to you talk here. I think the problem is you don't understand how the free market works, because what you're forgetting about is that these people are getting paid for their homes, so they can use that money, which is, as you yourself said, above the market value of their homes, to combat this little BlackRock doohickey that you keep babbling about. So basically, if you're going to sell your home for $200,000, but now you've got something that's maybe closer to $250,000 or maybe $300,000, there you go. No more BlackRock problem. And the other thing is that on Abby Shapiro's Instagram, there's a video of her singing opera.
Please play it for us.
Yeah, no, I've deviated from the opera post, if I'm being honest. But I just know that it's there, and so when you found it. I gotta close me. Come on, sing. Here we are. Yeah, so there you go. And so I think the fans would probably want to check that out after the show.
I'm sure they want to check it out for a variety of reasons.
Classically Abby is the Instagram. Don't think that you can just go on Instagram and search Abby Shapiro, because you can, but you're not going to find her official account. You better Google it. Yeah.
If you like
find more Abby than you're looking for.
If you like niche right-wing humor, then just search for Abby Shapiro, and you might like what you find.
Yeah. So you don't understand the free market, and Abby Shapiro sings opera. That's what we've.
I'm sure Abby Shapiro would be happy to enlighten everyone about how the free market actually works. You see that when the free market is really working, it's when every single resource is being consolidated under the same oligarchs, when they're establishing control over. But you see, they have private control. That's different than public control. They have private control over the resources. Yep. So it's different, because what you can do is you can engage in political activism. That's the way to really make your voice known. We're libertarians here. We believe in limited government. So if you want to accomplish something, what you need to do is you need to participate in government. That's the real venue to get things done. This is to drop the character. This is. I hope it's obvious that the conflict in this idea here, that the way to combat this is somehow to prevent bailouts or something. So to just get involved in different political activism. Why can't you just say, this is evil, this shouldn't be happening, and we're going to put our heads down and come up with a way to prevent this from happening? Like, why do we have to? They like to talk about bootlickers. Why do we have to lick the boots of global finance, of woke capital? Because these are the same middle-aged boomer white guys that will gladly solemnly endorse this paper, this abstract going around about on having whiteness, that describes whiteness as a like a parasitic infection that white people have, that white people are overwhelmingly susceptible for, that basically the only way to deal with it, there's no actual cure for it, and all we can do is we can try to leverage people's goals or something and turn them inward toward reparations. Like, this is serious academic work being published. It's all part of this same network of people. These are the people who fortified the election. This is the nature of power in America right now and around the world. I mean, the rest of the world is just a bunch of client states of America, but this is the nature of power, and this is the direction that it's moving. Increasingly, we're going to see so-called private organizations amassing control of capital. These are the capitalists that Marx described, was these types of people. Because Marx wasn't completely wrong with everything that with everything he wrote about and everything he prescribed. There was a lot of stuff that wasn't wrong. Where he went wrong was, well, there's a number of areas also where he went wrong, but the primary the notion, the utopian notion of the dictatorship of the proletariat just belied a complete misunderstanding of the nature of value and how people arrange themselves. But he had there's a lot of people that can accurately identify the problem, or they can accurately identify the solution, but they can't do both. And he was one who accurately identified the problem by and large. And so this nature of this arbitrary distinction that people have made between a public organization and a private organization, it leads you to treat with insufficient suspicion and cynicism organizations that are actively working to make the state irrelevant. And that's where we're going to move toward. And so what I'm anticipating is seeing rhetoric designed to lure free marketeers being used to lure free marketeers into supporting what is ultimately the permanent consolidation of global capital under the exact same people that they hated when those people worked for the government, but now they're going to work for private organizations that are doing this, so it's going to be just fine and dandy. This is the Klaus Schwab vision. This is the privatization, as Popular Liberty said in the last episode. This is like the privatization of statecraft. That's what's happening. So they're going to take control. They're going to own all this property, and then nobody else can own it. So you're going to be at their behest. And but where this is really interesting to me, I think, is to zoom it out a little bit and kind of play with this idea of ownership, of property ownership, and skin in the game, and what happens when you have absentee ownership, where you have one person who owns property in a given area, but they don't actually live there and they're never there. And I think that there's a lot of negative there's a lot of negative consequences that come from that. And I was kind of ruminating on this, that this is a product of the modern city. And I think one of the reasons why cities get as corrupt as they do, because in a city, you have a consolidation of people who don't have an ownership stake in the area where they spend all of their time. If you have a consolidation of people who are all renting, you get a tragedy of the commons effect, where the majority of the people who are acting and affecting a given location, not having an ownership stake in it, they don't treat it like it's worthy of it's like it's theirs. They don't treat it with the respect and the dignity and everything that it would merit. They don't have any incentive to take care of it. And I think this is one of the reasons why cities go south so fast and why they turn into hotbeds of corruption. Because corruption is ultimately what you get when you separate authority and responsibility. There's gonna always be someone who has authority and someone who has responsibility, but then that has to be one and the same. And once you get this dynamic of absentee ownership, it starts stretching kind of dividing the membrane that binds authority and responsibility. Because when you're in, Topeka, Kansas, and imagine a hypothetical where all the property in Topeka, Kansas is owned by someone who never visits Topeka, Kansas. He just lives in New York, and he hires people who manage that area, but he has no actual personal stake in it. All of the people who live there are going to have much less of a personal stake in their region. They don't own it. It's not theirs. So you're kind of depending on them. Well, I want things to be nice in my area, but it's not my fault that things went south. It's the fault of everybody else because they're not taking care of it. And if they're not taking care of it, then there's no reason for me to take care of it either. And there's a distinctly Uncle Ted lesson to be learned here, I think, about the nature of civilization and modernization. I know Steven likes Uncle Ted. He likes. I guess we shouldn't say that for the NSA, huh? Steven. It's
been a disaster for mankind.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, yeah.
It's an echo of times past. The way history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. Well, sometimes it repeats itself. And there was a time when, I don't know, when man became so corrupt that the situation was unsolvable. The situation could not be solved. It could not be saved. It could not be recovered. And that's the black pill. That's the direction that I think it's easy for people to fall into. And I can tell that Steven's getting ready to go hike up to the top of a mountain, the tallest mountain that he can find, and just sit there and wait.
that World Economic Forum video, and they're just like, in 2030, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy about it. And I'm just like, yep.
So you just start selling everything that you own now. Well, it's interesting
I'll own nothing in 2030, but you can believe that, Klaus.
There's a number of different ways that I could take that. I'm not sure which one.
This wasp gets in my house, I swear to God, I'm going to light the fucking thing on fire.
No. BlackRock, you ain't getting this house.
No, an actual wasp is at my window, and it's trying to find a way to get inside my house, and I'll light the whole goddamn building on fire. And it will just be a natural consequence that BlackRock doesn't have anything to buy.
It's there's so many layers of irony to this, and the puns are flying.
Oh, they really
Pardon
are.
the pun.
That's right.
As I was pondering this, I started thinking, okay, well, what's the solution? What's the move? How do you what's the option apart from just throwing up your hands and saying whatever, I'm just waiting for the earth to be cleansed with fire and water. Oh, fuck. And I think that, again, you can look to history, because history contains there's the patterns of history are they repeat themselves, or they at least rhyme. And one of the problems here is population density, and population being localized to specific areas. And I just went on a 2 week road trip. We drove all the way up to Washington, through California, through Oregon, up to Washington State, to Western Washington, and then drove out across Washington State, across northeastern Oregon, across southern Idaho, and then back down through the eastern part of Nevada, and then back home from Vegas back down to San Bernardino County where we are. And the it's funny to me when people will talk about how the earth doesn't have the resources to sustain the population, or we've run out of land, there's no more room, all that kind of thing. And because you could, when someone says something like that, you can tell that they've never traveled, especially they've never gone out to the west and midwest of the US, because there is some of the most desolate country you can imagine out there. And it's rough country. Like, the people that live out there are hard people, because it's, people that live in that modern Americans are very soft, by and large. Living in a city does that. There's so many negative effects to living in a city. One of the things it does is it makes people very soft. And I think that I suppose if you start from the premise of the earth is going to be cleansed, whether metaphorically or literally, that history tells us this kind of thing, you reach a point of just peak corruption, and where the land is lost, where the country is lost, the people have to be purged and cleansed. This has happened many times. So history tells us that it's going to happen again. There's going to be some kind of purging, some kind of cleansing. I don't know whether it's going to be earth crust displacement, or whether it's going to be an actual plague that is far more catastrophic than COVID. Either way, there's going to be something.
What do you mean actual plague?
COVID is very real. COVID has killed people. I disavow anyone that claims that it's fake. There you go. There you go, YouTube. When you start from, maybe start from the premise of there's no hope. It's all lost. I'm just, that's all we could do is just go sit up on top of a mountain and wait for the lightning bolts and the geysers from the earth, and just wait for God to purge the land. If you assume if that's your alternative, then there's a lot of ground that you can make up that's a lot better than that. So I think it's good for people to get to look nihilism in the face and understand that eventually you're going to burn up. Eventually the sun's going to fall out of the sky, and nothing you do will ever matter. You're an irrelevant little peon, a little speck on a tiny speck of a planet, inside a tiny speck of a galaxy, inside a tiny speck of a universe, and nothing you'll ever do will matter. Like, it's good to hit that point. It's good to bottom out, because then anything from there is, well, anything else is better. And there's actually lots of territory that's better than that. But I think that we have to start taking these things seriously and start planning as if they're real, and study history, study what has happened in the past, study the patterns, understand when you see different signs, like those are a sign of what's going to happen next. And what we know for sure is Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed. The cities of Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed. The people who were outside the city weren't destroyed. There was people who survived the flood. There's people who survive major cataclysms. There's people who survive catastrophes. There's people who survive worst case scenarios. How do they do it? Now you're into the engineering territory. And that's where I'd like to be. I'd like to be in the area where we have agreed that there's going to be a solution, and we just have to discover it and create it. But I think the first step,
you can move with me to New York City within the next year, and just run straight at it. Just head first. So
end of the misery.
Keep in mind, there's another option.
All right. Well, if the black pill becomes too much, then you can follow Steven in New York City. Uh, but otherwise, if you actually want to survive everything, then if you feel like there's hope, then then it starts with getting out of the city. It starts with I'd say even before that, it starts with finding people who you can trust, finding people you can depend upon, who see the world the same way you do. Find people who, if you had to survive Noah's flood, find the people that you wouldn't mind spending a year on an ark with, and then repopulating the earth with. Find those people, associate yourself with them, and then go to the place that's the least likely to be affected by all this. Because once the shit starts hitting the fan, the areas like obviously this idea of the Great Reset is effectively the global enslavement of humanity. It's Skynet. Like this is all the memes, all the movies and stuff. They're all they were signals pointing toward this, because this is where the mind naturally goes. This is where the Western mind, when it sets its eyes on conquest, this is the way that it's going to do it. It's going to globalize it, and it's going to try to rationalize and science the shit out of everything, and treat it like a computer program, because it's rationalism is the basis of the Western mind. There's a technological impossibility about subjugating the entire planet. There isn't the willpower or the technology to effectively do it. So it's going to be localized areas that are subjugated. And those areas are going to be bad. It's going to be the cities. Like we've already seen what's happening in the cities. We're in a little lull right now where there's no active riots happening, at least that I know of. But they're going to happen again. They've seen that it works. There's going to be more lockdowns. But here's the thing. While I was out driving, so I'm in Southern California normally, and there's, still today, yesterday I went into Target, was walking around, and I was shocked that every single person I saw had absolutely flawless mask wearing. From like mid-nose to under the chin, perfectly secured. Nobody had something loose around their nose or pulled down or anything like that. Just every single person. This is on June 10, 2021. Nearly flawless mask wearing in Southern California. And this is out east of LA. This is in relatively conservative part of Southern California. But with the exception of Western Washington and Western Oregon and Central California, the entire drive up and all the way back, especially through Nevada and Southern Idaho, hardly anybody wearing masks. The signs are all on the stores. They're all saying you have to wear a mask. Masks are required. Legally, you cannot enter the store unless you have a mask. In Nevada, most parts of Nevada, the employees weren't wearing masks. Nobody, the signs were there. Nobody gave a shit. They all walked right past them. Because within that culture, they understand the whole thing is bullshit. They understand that all of this is just performative, and they're not going to participate in it. They're going to require a lot more incentivizing to participate in that kind of a charade. And that will exist in gradation. So the closer you are to the heart of the cities, that's going to be the enforcement locale. That's going to be like the nexus of where all the enforcement happens. And then it's going to drift as you the further away you get from the heart of the city, the less enforced it's going to be. And the same is going to apply. So the masks are kind of a symbol for everything else. That's where everything else is going to be localized. It's going to be focused in the cities. If you get out of the cities, you'll realize that there's a massive, massive country out here. Lots and lots and lots of land. And lots of people who don't buy into the bullshit that dominates Twitter and that dominates CNN and all this. It's a very tiny fraction of the country that buys into all of this. And these people need an alternative solution. They need someone to present something realistic. Apart from the tired old Ben Shapiro conversations about how you can't have a problem with BlackRock doing this, you just have to have a problem with the bailouts. It's two arms of the same beast. The private and the public, they're both operating. It's just the same people, just moving back and forth across arbitrary lines, and using whatever tools are at their disposal to accumulate power and wealth and security to themselves. And if you keep playing that game, you're not going to get a different outcome. It's insanity. If you're sitting here as a libertarian or as a conservative and you look at this and you don't react with horror to what's happening with BlackRock, if you're just like, it's the free market, people can do what they want, then you deserve what's going to happen to you. The first step to actually achieving a world that doesn't have this type of influence on it is recognizing that it's bad. And it's really been disturbing to me to see the degree to which people who ostensibly believe in liberty, seeing this and shrugging about it and saying, "Oh, well, it's just the Fed. You just have to change what the Fed is doing, change monetary policy. You just have to win a presidential election." That might even be what you're telling me. You're a libertarian and you're telling me that if I have a problem with this, we'll just go win a presidential election and then fix it. Libertarians are just as committed to democracy, if not more so, than anyone else. And I'm ready for something different. I'm ready for a new group of people who are willing to recognize these evils for what they are, and they're willing to plan and work and engineer to prevent them. I mean, what if all these people that are selling their houses to BlackRock, what if somebody got to them with a message that was like, you may get an extra $100,000 for your house. That may feel great, but what are you selling for that $100,000? What are you, like, if you painted them a picture of what it would look like if 80% of the American population was reduced to permanent renters. There's a word for permanent renter. It's serf. That's what permanent renting is. If you don't even have the premise or even have the possibility of ever owning something, even the limited ownership that exists within a democratic context, then you're a serf. This is the realization of the road to serfdom. But these people don't. I'm in it for me. I just got to get mine. Like my house, I can sell it for $100,000 extra. Give me that money. Give me that money. I'm gonna take it and run. Run where? Where are you going to go? But everything is this high time preference. So these people, I don't fault them for it, but basically what they're doing is they're participating in their own enslavement for a little bit of money in return. And that's kind of the nature of where do I want to say this? That's kind of the nature of where capitalism has gotten us. This is a feature of capitalism. You can't have capitalism without this dynamic. You can conceive of a theoretical capitalism that doesn't have this dynamic, but when applied to human beings, this is what you're going to get. This is what capitalism is going to lead to. That doesn't mean socialism is the way. That doesn't mean, that doesn't mean Matt's a communist. Heaven forbid. But it's interesting that communism and monarchism are not that far apart. There's, in a kind of a weird, ironic way, there's a, the most effective monarch would, by definition, supply the communists with everything that they could need or want. Because he's going to keep them from revolting. He's going to keep them subjugated. Well, the best way to keep them subjugated is to give them no reason to revolt. So he needs to help them realize what they want isn't communism. They think communism is the best way to get the things that they want. But you could just supply them with the things that they want, and then they won't want communism. All the same, let me see if I can find this tweet where I referenced this, because someone was talking about this on Twitter the other day, and it hit me. Real King Pilled. see if this does it. Nope. Okay, I said the desires of communists would be most readily accommodated by a powerful monarch, and the most effective monarchy would satiate and pacify communists. The two aren't so far apart, to be honest. And I got that from there's a guy on Twitter who I'd recommend, if you're on Twitter, go follow this guy. It's at apex_simmaps, at APEX_SIMMAPS. And very, very interesting person. I assume it's a guy. I think it's a guy. I don't know. Very, very interesting mind. Breaks a lot of molds. They said the other day, 2 lessons I've learned tonight. 1, most of the right is no more a home for me than most of the left is. I'm grateful for those on here I connect with across belief systems. And then they said, 2, I must write about how different institutions with different natures and internal logics compete. And someone replied and said, weren't you arguing for the abolition of democracy lately? And they said, communist for monarchy. Yes. And a lot of people are gonna they're not gonna grok what that means, a communist for monarchy. But if you think of a monarch as the one hierarch and then everything else is equal underneath it, they're all equally not monarchs, then if the monarch is the one sovereign and then everybody else is equally not sovereign, then there's a model there that is very interesting to me. But anyways, I'm just kind of rambling and ranting here. So, Steven, do you have any thoughts?
New York City, 2022. Get a front row seat.
So you're gonna take Malice's place?
Oh, is he leaving?
Malice is moving to Austin, Texas.
Oh, Jesus. Well, you know what they say about Texas.
What do they say about it?
They don't say anything. They've never said anything about Texas.
Popular Liberty says, Matt, Steve, y'all got to get out of your states, move to Texas while the land is still cheap. Texas is on the list. For the time being, we are going to be, speaking of me and my family, we're in Southern California for the time being, and we have reasons for that. But then up until this vacation, Texas was going to be the next most likely location. But I don't know where. I don't know if Texas is ultimately going to be the spot, because Southern Idaho was just there's something about Southern Idaho that we really, really enjoyed. The Twin Falls area is just stunning. And it also happens to be one of the biggest agricultural hubs in the country. And that could be a double-edged sword, because the fact that there's so much agriculture there means it could be put under the microscope of the people who want to be able to control the entire global, especially the entire U.S. economy, but the entire global economy as well. So they could be more focused in that area. But at the same time, it also means that there's the opportunity to create kind of what I'm envisioning is kind of like little contract societies, kind of that are sort of like a micro, what would it be, kind of like a micro monarchy kind of, but basically a communal society that of people who share the same values that are largely independent. So kind of it's like whatever happens outside, we can survive it. We're going to take care of each other here because there's still dirt, and I can put seeds in dirt, and I can have a cow, and I can have a chicken, and I can use them to support my family. And if I have enough people around me who are the same way, then we can survive just about anything. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for an area that supplies that. So first of all, you need the community, and then you need to get the community to all relocate into one area, into one specific area. And so then you have to find the area that's the best. And so there's a lot of different dynamics to be considered there. But Mark says, one thing I'm afraid about Texas is that once they suck the life out of Austin, then they'll start Californicating the rest of the state. That's kind of my concern with Texas. My more broadly, it's that Texas is the very obvious one. So if Blue Empire decides that they want to make an example of the Red Empire, then there's a good chance that the Eye of Sauron is going to get focused on Texas or Florida. And that's going to be maybe like the the central battleground. And I don't know if that makes them just strategically not advisable, or if they're advisable for certain people but not for others. I'm also open to the fact that this may not happen in the U.S. If they're focused on the U.S., relocate Central America, El Salvador. This new, have you seen this, Stephen? Have you seen this new the president of El Salvador?
Oh, with the Bitcoin?
Yeah. Did you see what's his name? It's Nayib Bukele. Yeah. His Twitter bio says, yeah, it still says the same thing. It says it has his title in Spanish, and then it has it directly translated in English. So it's Presidente de la República de El Salvador, and then it's translated directly to President of the Republic of the Savior. So he didn't just translate it to President of the Republic of El Salvador.
Yeah.
He said the Savior. That got my attention. Yeah. That guy he's interesting. He's still got a lot of there's a lot about him that glows. Let me just put it that way. And I'm very suspicious of any sort of populist activism coming out of Central America. Yeah, because if you kind of go 4D chess with the people who are trying to, with the Illuminati or whatever you want to call them, with the capital T, they. If you want to go 4D chess with them, the best way to expand your power would be not to attack the dissidents directly on their face and try to crush them. It would be to bait them with a honeypot. And so if you've got all these, the BAP people, the Bronze Age pervert, Bronze Age mindset people, the NRX, the dissident right wing people who are, there's the trad group and all these different little subgroups. If you were to create an area like this, everyone's like, okay, we need to find a place outside the US. So let's find a location that has a charismatic populist, willing to be a right-wing authoritarian type of guy. Let's have him speak their language, have him say all the things that they want to hear, and let's lure them into this area, and then just make sure that we maintain control of that area. Like, that would be the 4D chess way of taking out your opposition. It's much easier to bait them into cooperating with you than it is to try to directly rule and subjugate them. So that's kind of what I'm wary of. So there's an aspect of him that's just a little too on the nose, where he's like, Bitcoin's going to be our legal tender, and I'm gonna explicitly say this type of thing. I'm gonna explicitly reference the Savior in my bio. I'm gonna get the laser eyes in my Twitter profile picture. It's just everything about him is just a little. He seems a little on the nose, but that could just be the what do you call it, the paranoiac in me.
Yeah. I haven't seen. I didn't know that it was turned up to 11 like that, but it does sound a little on the nose.
Yeah.
Upon hearing it.
Mark said that he said, "Good thing I have a shithole third world country to go home to. Just have to accumulate nomadic wealth first." Yeah, there's the big. You got to accumulate nomadic wealth before you can do anything else. All right. Well, I think that was about all that I had for me today. Just this morning, I did an interview for Gary Collins. He has the Simple Life podcast. His Twitter handle is at Simple Life Now. If you go follow him and look for the podcast, The Simple Life, on iTunes, that interview should be dropping soon. We talked about wokeism and the origin of wokeism and its roots in Christianity and all that sort of thing. And actually, the conversation was so good that we went long, and he decided we're going to have to do a part 2 where we get into more of the application for what are we going to do. So go subscribe to his show and then wait for that episode to drop. And I just realized that we never did our Carlos didn't come in here and remind us that we needed to do our Paloma Verde ad.
Well, I was here thinking about it, and I wasn't sure if over the past few weeks Carlos told you to go fuck yourself. with the sponsorship.
No,
was just
no,
like,
he
well,
hasn't yet. So I just
okay.
I basically just kind of inadvertently told him to go fuck himself, and I didn't mean to.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, all I know is that I need some sleepy time gummies. So I better head over to the website because last night I slept from 1:32 a.m. to 2:54 a.m. and
oof,
that's all your boy got, and I don't have an infant.
oof,
So
that is
yep.
brutal. Well, if you were in a situation like our dear friend Mr. Liberal Steve,
Dr. Stevie Boy.
Dr. Stevie, oh doctor now, huh?
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. That just
Thank you.
just, just increases the credibility of our show. We've got a doctor here.
Thank you.
So go to palomaverdecbd.com, PLOMAVERDECBD.com. Use promo code KING. You get 25% off any order over $75. What are you ordering? Well, it's just what it is, what it says. CBD. They've got great CBD products. They've got CBD gummies. They've got CBD soft gels. They've got a tincture. They've got muscle rub. They got all kinds of different CBD products. It's all really good quality stuff. I've really enjoyed it. They advertise for a bunch of different podcasts in this niche, and so it was I was honored that they were willing to bring us into their circle. Carlos and Vanessa are really good people. Carlos has his own podcast as well, Los Libertinos, and that reminds me, I need to connect with him to schedule my interview with him. I'm going to go on the show and talk to him. So go check out Green Paloma, PALOMAVERDECBD.com. Use promo code KING, and you get to support a small business that we love to support, and they love to support us. You get to put food on Carlos and Vanessa's table for their kids. And I think that's about all we got today. Mark says he's going to go order his next batch of Green Paloma CBD tincture. Good stuff, buddy.
God bless you, Mark.
God bless you. God bless all of you. Thank you for showing up today. This has been King Pilled. Go follow me on Twitter at Real King Pilled, and then follow Stevie Boy
Please don't follow me.
Messina
God,
Inc.
don't follow me.
Make sure you send him lots of boomer memes.
Fuck.
That's what you need to use your Twitter.
That's the only
for.
that's
Right.
the only acceptable. Yeah, boomer memes are welcome.
Inundate him with boomer memes.
Please.
And we will be back on. Oh, Carlos did an episode with Thad Russell. Excellent. I'm going to go listen to that too. So we will be back here on Monday at the same time, same place. And until then, toodaloo.
See ya.